Welcome, YouTubers. Top 11 ways handicappers scam you. Brought to you by GreatDanePicks.com, a handicapping website, and YouTube analyst. So this is how I scam you, right? Not really, but here's the 11 ways. One of them is that you'll see, whether it's on YouTube or free picks or whatever, or not free picks, the handicapper will state a line that you cannot get, and that may be for a number of reasons. They may think their line's legit. They'll release it on a Tuesday, for example, and by the time you get to you getting a pick on Sunday, not the same line. Sometimes the lines aren't available on Tuesday, so you couldn't make a bet that way. When the line does come out, it's not that line. Other times, they're just off on the lines. So I tend to look at covers.com for a historical result of what the line they state. Now, I know that's not perfect either, but at least it's all on the same playing field. So yeah, they state a line that you can't get, and some of the games will fall in between their line and what line you can get, and they'll use that to overstate their ATS records. Now, some people blatantly overstate their ATS records and make errors in their accounting or whatever just to pump themselves up, but most of it is stating a line that you can't get, and they stick to that line. So I'll give you, I could say, hey, every week I could say plus 20, right? They're 20-point dog. It's not a real line, and neither is plus 4, right? When it ended up being something completely different, like you're only getting plus 1, and if that game falls in between, so they end up slightly overstating their ATS record or drastically overstating their ATS record. So that's the way they get you. You think they got this huge ATS record, you don't do the math yourself, or you don't have the data to do it, then you get left in the cold because they're really not that good. Blended results, they don't really give you ATS records. They give you what I call less credible prop type stuff. So over-unders, parlays, teasers, props, those are things, if you start betting on the weather or you're betting on the number of turnovers or whatever, that's not quite as solid as being a nice solid spread picker, ATS spread picker. I know sometimes you have to do money line in some sports, and that's the way it is, but if it's a sport that's got an ATS like basketball or football and they're giving you money line, those are really hard to validate what the money line was and what you were getting. So they can say anything, right? And so when they blend in all their results and don't break out how they do against the strong ATS, real ATS, not fake ATS, right? Just real ATS against the spread bets. Then you get a real idea of how they do on and how they evaluate teams. So they give you blended results that have a lot of stuff, and anybody can run hot for a while when you got that many different results. And I'll show you a video after this of somebody who sort of does that, and has a nice looking, calls it spread ATS, but it's not really, right? So another thing is not enough data. You just can't tell on some of these handicappers. Now, if they're on YouTube, you definitely have the data. It's available for you. You can go look it up. But if you take their word for it or do the text where people can change text, sometimes you got to take a look at video. I know that takes time, but you don't want to put your hard-earned money down before without doing some background data, because you can. And if you can't get the data, then that's a good way to scam it, because their data might not be good and verifiable, which means they might not list the other stuff on the list. Not so much on YouTube, but when you use a service, they'll have multiple pickers, and I put this analogous to filling out an NCAA bracket, and you fill out 20 of them. You always know somebody who fills out 20 of them, and then you got somebody, right? I got a bracket where I picked the final 4. Well, 19 of them you didn't, right? So if you have a big service and you're paying a lot of money and you're getting them offline, and they have a lot of pickers to choose from, or they're just picking who's hot in the last couple months, and they should have 19 losers, right? 1 winner, and they should state that. If they don't state that, then you're in a sort of a scam world. People who take a big cut, usually the winnings, I'll split the winnings with you, but when we lose, you lose all your money, or take some significant amount of money out of, or just getting paid outright, a significant amount of money, $600 a week or something, regardless of the number of picks, and they give you like 4 picks, so you got to bet a huge amount of money. Taking a big cut out of the overall profits for your bet level, that's where that's a scam. They're getting you money. Anytime if you get affiliated or they're doing sales pressure, those are scams. We all have to close sales. We all have to do what we got to do, but if they're calling you all the time, selling you off, That's a downfall of some of the handicappers, and that's a big time red flag. If they take bets themselves, that's bad for handicapping, because now you're getting into, especially in America, that's where you're going to get pinched illegally. It's not illegal to be a handicapper. It's illegal to take bets and run a betting operation without a license. So if they have a lot of affiliations with those people, I guess it's always, if you ask, then, they'll probably tell you a place to bet. But if they pushing places to bet on you, they have to take money from casinos, then they're trying to sell you some stuff. Usually not a good handicapper. If they're a 30-year winner, that's always a little skeptical. 25 years experience, whatever, you see them all the time. Again, time in doesn't necessarily mean, it means something, right? But it doesn't mean the ultimate, right? You shouldn't be, if these guys were 30-year winners, they would be somewhere else, maybe. So always take that with a grain of salt. You got to get people who are hot now, and doesn't mean that they're a winner over the 5 years, right? Or a good enough winner, but again, that's enough data. If he's got 30 years of data to back it up, then okay, maybe he does have a winning system. If they don't do money management, or just gloss over, and a lot of people just give you picks, this is kind of unfair, but there's more money to be made if you can figure out a money management system along with your picks. Like, how well do you like it? So a lot of people just say I like it. They don't say how well do I like it and spread their money. I know that confuses things, but that's something to take a look at. How much you should be betting, because if all the bets are flat, then you're not really taking advantage of good value in lines. All lines and value are not the same, right? And ultimately, the number one way that handicappers take your money is that their picks lose. So they collect a bunch of money, and they just give you average to picks that lose money. So they took your money, and you didn't get anything great in return, so you were scammed. So how do you scout a capper? Well, again, I'm going to have a video right after this video. Came out first, so hopefully it's in line in my thing when I go through just looking at a person on YouTube where they gave you some picks. That's the data I have available. You have to plow through it. I use the covers.com results. I don't use what they state in the video nor what they'll state in the text. I might do it for a quick check, but for overall, when you dive into details, you're going to put money on, you're going to put your hard-earned money, take a look at their actual video and what they say. Hopefully they're clear on what they say. Ignore prop bets, because people who you can definitely make a lot of multiples. I have videos on this where if you're doing OUs, you can run a hot streak, boost your picks, but then you have no real assets to fall back on where you're a real good ATS picker. You always want a real good ATS picker, and you can figure out the OUs and parlays from there, or just stay away from them. If you see a lot of red flags, stay away. If something's irking you off, that's a good deal. And trust your intuition. At some point, you have to have faith. I understand that, and you're going to put your hard-earned money down, and you're taking the risk. But that's good rewards, hopefully, and that's what it is. But there's always, if there's something that's really off, or they're making your calls, just get away. Or if you already made the commitment, get away. But otherwise, stay away. And of course, avoiding large outputs of money won. A large percentage of your money getting kicked back to a handicapper. I guess you could view it, like tipping in a restaurant or something. 20% might be okay, but if they're taking half your winnings, that's something you should negotiate. You're taking the risk, like I said, so you have to judge that. But at the same time, if they're providing a service that's really winning a lot of money for you, just look at it long term. It's the long-term sustainabilities. People do great for one season, and sometimes they don't do great for one season. If they don't, and that's not necessarily a reason to take or avoid them, but because everybody will have a down season. But if you've looked at a couple seasons and they're not doing well, and you just don't feel well about their picks, just a lot of people aren't good pickers, and they think they're good pickers, but they're not. All right. So enjoyed it. See ya.